Hey guys, I'm Erin and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm kicking off one of two reading vlogs I'm hoping to do in the month of April. So at the beginning of January, I went on a requesting spree at my local library, just putting in requests for a bunch of upcoming releases from January through about March and a little into April. And my library is pretty inconsistent with how quickly they get new releases into their system and into hands of patrons. Sometimes the turnaround is really quick, sometimes it takes a while. So a bunch of these new releases I requested came in like within the span of a week, right before April started. And so I decided I would use those books for my two reading vlogs I want to try. In April, I wanted to do some kind of theme just because I personally prefer themed reading vlogs versus just like weekly, monthly, time-based reading vlogs. And the books that came from the library easily fit into two categories, so I thought it'd be good to do my first attempt at a reading vlog this month. For this vlog, I'm going to be doing young adult fantasy releases, and I have 3 of those. I also have not quite decided what order I want to read these in yet, so I'm going to talk about them now in the order they were published. So first up, which came out on January 5th, is Lore by Alexandra Bracken. This is a Greek mythology infused young adult kind of urban setting fantasy where in this world, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, a bunch of the gods tried to revolt, and in punishment, every 7 years they have to participate in the Aegon, which is a competition where these 9 different chosen family bloodlines hunt the gods, and if they can kill the god, because during the week of the Aegon, the gods are in mortal form, if they can kill a god, then that person gets to become a new god. They don't become the god they kill specifically, they get their powers, and then they have their own name, so they're not just literally becoming the exact god, but a new god version. And in this book we follow specifically a character named Lore, who's the last of her bloodline who had gotten out of the Aegon. She left that life behind. Her whole family had been killed by a different family at the end of the last one, and then she gets pulled back in at the beginning of the story right before the new Aegon by a childhood friend reappearing, as well as the appearance of Athena, who is wounded, who shows up on Lore's doorstep. So I think this sounds pretty good. I usually quite enjoy mythology-infused fantasy. This is also a standalone, and I love, finding some good standalones to mix in with the series I'm working on. So I'm definitely looking forward to this one, picking up this one. Next, which came out January 26th, is Into the Heartless Wood by Joanna, Ruth, Meyer. This is one I've heard nobody talk about, either pre or post-release. I think I stumbled upon it, I was perusing Goodreads, one of their lists. It's upcoming releases we're excited for, and this one, the cover drew me in, and it sounded pretty good. So this is, it feels kind of like a folktale kind of vibe. It's about this wood where there is a witch queen who has 8 siren daughters, and they eat souls to feed their enchanted, expanding woods kingdom or queendom. And then we have a character who lives outside of the woods named, I think his name's Owen, who works for his dad's observatory for the king of the non-woods world, and then one day he has to enter the woods for the first time to save his sister. And when he enters the woods, one of the siren daughters decides to not kill him and leave him alive, and they fall in love until one day the queen of the woods and the king on the outside go to war, and it sounds like it's going to be some kind of star-crossed lovers mixed with this kind of fairy tale vibe, and I think it sounds great. Very excited about this one. And then the last young adult fantasy I have for this vlog came out on January 26th. Oh, I misspoke. This came out on January 12th. I read my list wrong. January 12th. And then on January 26th, A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Brigid Kemmerer came out. This is the 3rd and final book in the Cursebreakers trilogy. I'm not going to go into what this one's about since it's book 3, but the series with book 1, which is A Curse So Dark and Lonely, is a Beauty and the Beast retelling where we have Ren, our hero, who's trapped in this Groundhog Day kind of curse where he has a couple months to break the curse, and if he doesn't, he turns into a beast and literally goes on a killing rampage in his kingdom, and he's kind of hiding this as well from his people. And our hero, Harper, lives in DC in our world, and she saves this man one night from being, she saved him from being abducted, and she gets taken by this man through a portal into Ren's world to be the next in the line of girls who this man, who is Ren's helper, has taken to try and break the curse. So I really liked book 1. Book 2 was okay. So I'm interested to see how book 3 goes. So those are the 3 books I'm planning to read for this vlog, and if I do predict my ranking of them just on gut feeling, based on just what I know about them, I think I would have A Vow So Bold and Deadly in 3rd place, followed by Lore, and then into the Heartless Wood. This is my gut feeling ranking, and we'll see how I actually feel about them after I read them. So I couldn't decide what to read first for the month of April. Tonight it's Wednesday, March 31st, so I guess not technically April yet. But, so I have my husband choose for me off my shelf of general TBR books and my vlog TBR books, and so he chose Lore by Alexandra Bracken, so this will be my first read of April and my first read for this vlog, and I'm gonna start it tonight, and I will, I guess, check in whenever I have major thoughts. I guess that's how you vlog. We'll see how that goes. Hey guys, so I'm about, I think 128 pages into Lore so far, so I thought I'd give some brief kind of first impression thoughts. So far I'm definitely liking it. I think our main character is good, but she's certainly not a favorite main character so far. She's kind of a little bit of a stereotypical, I had this rough, traumatic childhood, which, I mean, she did. I'm kind of this rough and tumble, almost a loner personality, which definitely not a favorite, so, but I do enjoy her, and I think her story could definitely go in some interesting directions. I also am enjoying the plot so far. Things are happening frequently enough to keep me turning pages really easily. It's definitely moving. There's kind of 2 story threads right now. We were with one, and then Laura kind of left that story thread for, I mean, logical plot reasons, and now we're in the second one, and I am kind of wondering, like, didn't that first one have some time-sensitive things happening? When are you gonna go back to that? So I guess in that way, the story is moving a little slowly, and then I'm like, why haven't you gone back there yet? Like, this seemed important, and we're just kind of stalling over here. But, I mean, the second story thread is also interesting, and within it, there's, like, again, things happening that keep me turning the pages, so I'm definitely interested in the story. And I will say the kind of premise of the mortal families being able to kill the gods and become new versions of those gods is certainly something I have not encountered in any of the mythology inspired books I read, so definitely a unique premise, and I'm, again, so far enjoying it. So hoping to get farther in this today, and I will probably check in maybe around halfway, see how I'm feeling then. Okay, so I am 284 pages into Lore, and just a quick pop in to say that I'm really digging this, like, background banter between Van and Miles. I don't know if the author is kind of doing, like, just like a friendship or kind of like a background little bit of a romance, but either way, definitely enjoying the banter we just saw between them. I'm here for it. Okay, so I finished Lore, and I enjoyed it. I think I would give it 4 stars. I think it was really solid, you know, standalone fantasy. As far as the characters, Lore never became a favorite character after, I think I mentioned that in, like, my first check-in, but she was certainly interesting. She was kind of just a ball of rage and anger and revenge, but the author went into her backstory, and all of those feelings are, like, 100% and totally freaking justified, because a lot of bad stuff happened, and so she's angry about the stuff that happened to her parents. And this is, and also she takes kind of a feminist slant with the story, and how much Lore resents and is angry about the things that happened to her that are a result of this patriarchal, misogynistic culture that she was raised in, and that gets brought up and talked about, as well as at one point Laura confronts Athena about how even Athena, who's a goddess and, you know, a woman, was perpetuating a lot of this misogyny because Athena only helped men heroes, like she only mentored them, and that played into a lot of the misogynistic views of her culture of not believing women can be leaders or, like, heads of families and stuff. So I thought that was really an interesting take that I wasn't expecting from this book. As well, I thought the plot was overall pretty interesting. I did feel like I got a little bit of a lull in the middle where I was like, alright, is something gonna happen? Are we gonna start resolving things? But overall, I did enjoy it for 90% of it. And one thing, I think this book really read like a climactic finale to a series. Like, this book was on like 98% climax, and so it kind of read in the way I expect kind of series ends to read when you have, you know, a book or two building up to this huge blowout finale, which was definitely an interesting and different reading experience from a standalone, because it really jumped into the action pretty quickly. So, you know, your mileage may vary on if you enjoy that or not, but I mean, I did still enjoy it. It was interesting, and the ending was definitely a ride. Okay, so I have started Valencia Bold and Deadly as my second read for this vlog, and I am exactly 100 pages in. And so far, I don't really have any super strong thoughts, positive or negative. It's just, I mean, I'm enjoying it. That's really all I have to say. I will say I am very glad that we have all 4 characters' points of views. I definitely missed that in the second one, even though plot-wise it made sense why the second one focused on 2 of them. I did still really wish we had the other 2 for multiple reasons, but glad we have all 4 in this one. And yeah, I'll try and check in if I start having super strong thoughts one way or the other. Yeah, but so far not bad. Okay, so now I am about halfway through this one, and I just wanted to pump in for one quick comment, which is Harper and Ren's kind of half of the storyline has started feeling a little exhausting, because it feels like 80% of the storyline is focused on this relationship back and forth of, oh, they're mad at each other, but they made up, but now they're mad at each other again, and they made up again. It's getting a little tiring, and I'm not sure how I go about it. Okay, so I have finished A Vow So Bold and Deadly, and it was fine. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't really like it, like particularly love it or anything. It was very average. It was a 3-star read. So some thoughts: Leomara needed to grow a backbone. I understand she was trying really hard to not rule like her mother did, but she went so far in the other direction that it was still not good, and she needed to find some kind of compromise between overly passive and nice and cruel, and needed to make some actual decisions on her own. So I didn't really love that. I also just thought the whole book overall was a little underwhelming based on how the second one ends and what the cover flap of this one itself tells you this book is about. It just, what actually ended up happening in the book felt underwhelming based on those, I think, perfectly valid expectations of the book. In addition, there's just this one big decision Harper makes that I get where she was going. I get why she did it. I didn't think it was bad that she, did this thing, but I think her expectations of how the thing was going to turn out were totally naive and kind of silly. I was like, it was pretty clear how this was going to turn out. I didn't hate that you did it, because it was kind of a what else was she going to do in that moment, but I was also like, girl. And then, as well, the ending wasn't what I wanted. There were kind of 2 different ways the ending as a whole could have ended, and it ended in the one I didn't want. I just think it didn't make sense for it to end this way, especially the way it ended. I think it could have ended the way it did, and I would have been fine with it if it had come about in a more, I guess, decisive way. I'm trying not to say super spoilers or anything, but the way it came about, I didn't enjoy it, and I did prefer the other ending to start with. So there's that. And then the last thing I have to say is a little bit of a spoiler, I guess, which is there was a pregnancy in this book. And pregnancy is just not something I want in my YA fantasy. Maybe that's just me, but that's just not what I'm looking for of YA fantasy. There are very few book genres that I would welcome or have no problem with the main character pregnancy, and YA fantasy is not one of those. So overall, again, 3 stars. I'm definitely glad I finished the series, because after the second one I did kind of debate, but I'm glad I finished the series. I do not remember how cliffhangery the first one ended, but I would say the first one should have been a standalone, and I don't remember if it could be read as a standalone, but if it could, I definitely really liked the first one. So, and then one more comment that's completely unrelated to the content of the book, but on the back of the book, one of the blurbs is by Jodi Picoult, who has to be the most unexpected author blurb I've ever seen on a book. This is a young adult fantasy book, and Jodi Picoult writes adult emotional family drama fiction, and so seeing her blurb on the back of this book, I was like, what? Anyways, that's a totally random thought and had no factor on how I enjoyed this book. But yeah, on to the last book for this vlog. Okay, so I've started the 3rd and final book for this vlog, Into the Heartless Wood, and I'm, I think, about 100 pages into it, and I'm quite enjoying it so far. This book definitely, so far, is all about the vibes. It kind of the whole, feeling I get when reading it reminds me of the kind of vibes I got from reading like Spinning Silver or Uprooted. Now I'm not comparing them necessarily plot-wise or any other way, but just kind of that atmospheric, folksy tale vibes, which I'm really quite enjoying. So if you enjoy that, so far I would recommend this, but we'll see how the rest of the book goes. And yeah, I like it. I think so far our two main characters' relationship, it has definitely not progressed to the kind of love story part, but it is definitely starting, and it's really quite interesting, especially with the Wood Siren character, just kind of listening to her talk about wanting to learn, I guess, humanity in a way, because she's a monster, and after encountering Owen, she's like, why do you care about these things? What is your world like? Kind of like a Little Mermaid vibe there, that like, show me your world. I will say the one thing I'm not sure how I feel about is these chapters with the Wood Siren are written in this short format. Like, is this what books and verse is? Is that what that means? Is that what you call it, a book and verse? Not sure, because I've never read one of those, but so her chapters are all just kind of written like that, and I don't dislike it. I definitely think it's effective for what I think it's going for, which is it definitely kind of conveys this feeling of the thoughts of the person in that chapter, which is the Wood Siren character, of not being totally human thoughts, not like flowing as easily as like prose does when you're writing a human character. So I think it's effective in kind of conveying that feeling, but I don't necessarily love reading that style of writing, I've learned. And yeah, looking forward to reading more of this book today. Okay, so I'm about 190 pages now into this one, and we've just started part 2 of the story, and the chapter I just read with Owen, where, without kind of spoiling what's happening in the plot, Owen has started to interact more with other like humans in the kingdom versus just his dad and sister at home, and in the woods he's actually interacting with kind of more human characters in the story. And something about the last chapter with him, the tonal switch was so unexpected. It kind of went from this very atmospheric, woodsy, magical folktale vibe, and it still definitely has kind of like the fairy tale, folktale feel, but the last chapter where he was talking to these people in the big city had an interesting comedic, almost comedy of errors tone to it, where he's just trying to get some answers, and everyone's like, the responses were just like, no, we're not telling you anything, ha ha ha. I don't know, it's definitely a lateral move as far as a tone I'm enjoying. I mean, it's only been one chapter, so I guess that could change, but so far, like, I don't dislike this random tonal switch, but it was definitely unexpected. Okay, so I finished Into the Heartless Wood, and I thought it was good. I would probably give this a solid 4 stars. If you are really craving like a fairy tale kind of vibe book, I would definitely recommend this to you. That is very much what this was, very much fairy tale vibes. I think this did a really good job of looking at like what it means to be human, because that's a lot of what Serene, our Wood Siren's story was her rebelling against being this monstrous being in the woods, and wanting to learn from Owen like what it means to be human, and she wanted to be human. And so I think that aspect of the story was really well done. Going along with kind of her journey, I think one thing the author did do well, and its purpose was effective, I think, was Serene's chapters kind of started out with this more kind of book in verse type, with like shorter, choppier sentences, sentences kind of broken up across several lines, and then as the character kind of gained more humanity, they became fuller and fuller sentences, fuller paragraphs, reading more and more like normal prose. And I think that really did a good job demonstrating kind of this journey from the thoughts of this pseudo-human-like character to more of really a human. That being said, I didn't particularly enjoy reading them when they were the shorter sentences. That's just like not a style of writing that meshes well with my brain. And so I think that method was very effective for what the author wants. However, due to personal preference, I just didn't particularly enjoy reading the shorter sentence kind of in verse. But it's not because she did it poorly. I just don't particularly enjoy that. So I didn't really like a lot of reading. I liked Serene's story, but didn't particularly like reading her chapters as much because of that, which kind of is mostly what brought this down to a 4. The one other thing I think I expected a little bit more out of was the romance itself. I was super into it from the beginning, but then something got revealed that I felt was kind of an insurmountable obstacle for one person to love the other, and so because of that, I never really bought that it was a true 2-sided story after that. and for a while I didn't think she was going back to that. I thought it was going to be sticking into this kind of like one-sided, unrequited tragic love story, which I thought fit really well with the story. But then towards the end, it became clear that she was definitely leading it into more of the two-sided. And I do think because it's kind of this fairy tale vibe, that having not as much of it on page did work fine. It was just that one thing that felt like too much of an obstacle for the second person to really be able to fall for the other because of that. Again, not trying to spoil it. So I just, in the end, it did become clear she was trying for it to be a two-sided, and I just didn't really buy the two-sided. I think it worked better and should have just stayed as the kind of one-sided, tragic, unrequited love story. But I overall did very much enjoy this. Again, I'm giving this a 4-star, very solid. This is definitely a young adult fantasy that I would not hesitate to recommend to most people. That's kind of a wrap-up to this vlog. I don't, unfortunately, I've already returned the other 2 books to the library, so I can't do a visual stack, but my original predictions of the order I would like these was correct. This was my favorite of the 3, followed by Lore, which was also a 4-star, and then A Vow So Bold and Deadly was my least favorite of the 3 at a 3-star. So thanks for watching my first attempt at a vlog. I hope it was kind of interesting, and if you've read or are interested in picking up any of these 3 books, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video.